So, welcome to Ayurveda on digestion and how to improve your digestion today at your very next meal. If you are unfamiliar with Ayurveda, or maybe you're just learning a little bit about it right now, here's a little refresher for you. Ayurveda is the system of medicine that originated over 5,000 years ago, some believe, in India. It's considered the sister science or the healing side of yoga. And both yoga and Ayurveda developed around the Vedic system of philosophy. Both yoga and Ayurveda teach us how to reach enlightenment. Yoga through spirituality and Ayurveda through physical and mental health, right? Our vehicle to enlightenment. So according to Ayurveda, your disease or your wellness begin in the digestive system, begin in the gut. And modern science is catching up to this idea in that many discoveries and connections have been made and continue to be made around the gut-brain connection. You may have heard of the gut-brain connection or the gut-brain axis. It's another term that's used to refer to this system. The digestive system actually has its own nervous system, and it's called the enteric nervous system. It has over 100 million nerve endings, and it can control your digestion without you even thinking about it. It's actually been nicknamed our second brain. It's that significant. And so this enteric nervous system, or your gut brain, is connected to the central nervous system, your big brain. And it's connected by a network of nerve pathways. And these two systems, your big brain and your gut brain, communicate back and forth. So what you're doing or even thinking, perhaps even before or during or after your meal, affects your digestion and vice versa. So what you eat affects how you think, how you feel, and possibly what you do. In fact, 95% of your serotonin, and that's the chemical in your body that helps stabilize your mood. It helps you sleep. It's super important to all of your functions. That 95% of your serotonin is found in your digestive system, which I think is just astounding, right? So if you don't think you are what you eat or how you eat, think again, right? There's so much connection between these two systems. Stress directly affects our digestion through this brain-gut connection or axis. And digestion, or the food we eat, directly affects how we feel, not to mention how we look. And what do I mean by that? Well, where do you think you form bodily tissues? From your food, right? It's not from the air, it's from the food you eat. And it's all well and good if you're eating the cleanest, most organic, local foods. But if you're not digesting those foods correctly, then you're not forming healthy body tissues from those foods. It's kind of a waste of money. And how do you know if you're not digesting those foods properly and forming healthy tissues? Well, do you have gas, bloating, discomfort, burning, maybe reflux, even lower intestinal issues, diarrhea, constipation, or just any significant or even small amounts of digestive upset after your meals? And then another thing Ayurveda tells us, if we're trying to figure out how well we're digesting our food, besides the obvious, besides the digestive challenges, is looking at your tongue. Do you have coating on your tongue? And that's going to tell you that you're not digesting your food properly if you do have some coating on your tongue. Do you have chronic health conditions or health challenges? Somewhere along the way, Ayurveda says that whether you noticed it or not, you didn't digest your food properly. That went on chronically, uncorrected, and it turned into the pathology of that, turned into disease. And so our digestive system, our gut, is where disease begins. It's where our problems start. The good news about that is that it's really easy to access this system where everything begins, right? Because we can start at our next meal, not only with our food choices, but how we are eating them. We can directly affect the quality of our digestion and therefore begin healing ourselves at our very next meal today by simply taking a look at how we're eating. And Ayurveda says that 85% of our digestive issues can be solved by just correcting how we are consuming our food. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'll touch on the other 15% at the end of this talk. But if you can follow the tips I'm going to share with you today, and they're a lot, they're significant, you can solve most, if not all, of your digestive issues and start to heal any and all of your other health issues, even some of the really stubborn ones. So the first tip is to eat at the same time each day. We want to create a routine around our meals. So you want to eat breakfast each morning at the same time. You want to designate a lunch break and actually take it. If you have a job that's really demanding, this is so important. And I know it can be so difficult to do, but you want to take that lunch break at the same time each day. Same for dinner, right? Eat at the same time every day. And when you create routines around your food, around your meals, your nervous system can calm down. It knows what's coming next. It knows you're taking care of yourself. And when your nervous system can predict what's going to happen, and then you execute, everything calms down from your mind to your fight or flight response to your digestive system. Remember what I was just talking about, that gut-brain axis or connection through the nervous system, right? You digest your food better when you eat your meals at the same time because your nervous system is calm and grounded and knows you're taking care of it. Okay, so that's the first step. And that's a pretty easy one, I think, for most people. Pick times where you're going to eat your meals and then stick to it. Okay, step one. Step two, or guideline number two, because you don't necessarily have to do these in this order, but I find that it's kind of logical to start with some of these first several guidelines and then build upon them. Okay, so guideline number two, sit down to eat in a calm environment. And if you're like me and you value expedience and efficiency, then you may feel like it's just part of what you do to stand up and eat and not to sit down. You don't have time for that. But it's really, really important to actually sit down. So that might even be where you start, just sitting down to actually eat. Okay. And that might be something that takes a while to get into the habit of doing because you might not catch yourself all the time. But give yourself some time, give yourself some space, be patient. Start there if you never sit down or rarely sit down to eat a meal. Okay. So don't stand at the corner, or rather at the counter. Don't stand at the corner of the street to eat either, but don't stand at the counter, over your food. Like maybe you just pulled it out of the fridge, didn't even heat it up, some leftovers out of the container. Put your meal on a plate, put it in a bowl, right? Put it on the table, sit down at the table to eat it, right? We're not going to be creating healthy body tissue by wolfing down a sandwich while we're driving in our car, right? So you've got to calm your body by sitting. It knows it can let its guard down and focus on food now, right? It calms that fight or flight situation. It calms the nervous system. So that create a calm environment after we sit down. This could be anything from agreeing not to talk about politics and religion at the dinner table to maybe even eating in silence. It could even mean committing to getting away from your desk at work to eat lunch outside. That could be a much calmer environment than your office. You might eat with a coworker in the kitchen or the lounge, or even just sit in your car with some nice relaxing music playing if you have no other peaceful options. And I have a lot of clients who do that. They sit in their car to eat lunch, and it's a really nice break from their office, especially if it's really hot outside. You can sit in an air-conditioned environment that's much calmer. And it could even mean, putting fresh flowers on your breakfast table, lighting the candles at dinner, or putting out the good china, even for a mundane meal like lunch, or seemingly mundane meal like lunch. So we want to create something sacred out of the seemingly mundane. And I always say that's one of my favorite parts of Ayurveda, is that it creates something sacred out of something we have to do for survival every day, multiple times a day. But you want to think of eating, again, as this really sacred experience that is going to create healthy body tissue and free you from your disease. It's going to heal you from the inside out. Okay, so just to review, step 1, eat at the same time each day. Pick those times and stick with them. And then guideline number 2, sit down to eat in a calm environment. Okay, so sit down and create some peace, whether it's by choosing with whom you eat, choosing to eat in silence alone, or just choosing a nicer environment by changing the things around you while you eat. Okay. Guideline number 3, and this goes along with the first 2, eliminate distractions while you eat. So that calm environment does not include a TV, a podcast, even reading, and especially not working. Okay. So your brain prioritizes a low level of distraction all the time over digestion. I'm going to repeat that. Your brain prioritizes a low level of distraction all the time over digestion. So if you're engaging the brain in the task of emails, the drama of the news, your favorite TV show, it's not going to give digestion the proper energy it needs to know which and how much of each digestive enzyme it needs to secrete to properly digest your food, right? And then that's going to lead to gas, bloating, burping, reflux, right? The list goes on. And then let's face it, how long does it really take you to eat a whole plate full of food without rushing? I mean, no more than 10 minutes, right? If you're really focusing on your food, you're not doing anything else, it doesn't really take that long. And I know that I can sacrifice 10 minutes out of my day, right, to give my digestion a fighting chance to build those healthy tissues. So I know you can too. And the other thing I want to mention under this guideline number 3, under this eliminate distractions, is your brain. I find this information fascinating. Your brain tells your digestive system exactly how much of and what enzymes, chemicals, acids, etc., to produce as soon as you look at your food, right? So your digestive system is this historical system. And that's just fascinating to me. So imagine that one of my teachers once said, imagine what happens when you go to a buffet. You start to look at this option and then this option. Your brain's like, okay, I know what to do for, grilled chicken. And then you look at a vegetable. It's like, okay, I know what to do with that too. But then you look at the next option and then the next option and the next option. Your brain at some point just kind of shuts down, right? It's like, I don't know, you've given me too many options at this point and I'm confused. So don't ever be afraid to eat the same thing over and over again, or things that you know you digest really well, because your brain is very good at digesting and remembering how much of and which enzymes, chemicals, hormones, et cetera, to produce. So that being said, I like to bring this up because if you're not focusing on your food, if you're looking at something else, if you're reading, if you're working, even if you're really engaged in heavy conversation, your brain isn't going to devote all of those important resources and energy to your food, right? So you really want to give your brain the opportunity to focus on the food, and then it will give all of its energy, maybe not all of its energy, because it's always got a low level of distraction going on. So it's going to be a little distracted, but it's going to give as much energy as it can to your digestion, right? So we want to sit down, focus on your food. It's no more than 10 minutes, you guys. It really isn't. I think what draws out meals is all the distractions, all the things we're doing. We're typing and then we're eating, or we're reading and then we're eating, or we're watching and then we're eating, or we're talking and then we're eating. So it draws out the meal longer. And there's nothing wrong with lingering over a meal as long as it's done, right? Sitting down in a calm environment at the same time you usually do it. And you're not doing things besides having, some calm or some uplifting conversation. So focus on that food, eliminate distractions. Okay. And then guideline number 4, before eating, take 3 deep breaths, take a moment of silence, or maybe say grace if that's in your comfort zone, if that's in your tradition. And this is a real game changer. This is how you really calm the nervous system, right? You've sat down, you're eating your meal at the same time, so your nervous system knows what to expect and you're fulfilling that promise to it. It's saying, right? fill in the blank, your name has got us. We're being taken care of. So fight or flight immediately can come down. But then if you can also take those 3 deep breaths, or just take a moment to calm a little further and set your intention to actually focus on digestion, focus on your meal. If I can do this, it's so much easier for me to remember to do all the other things, right? And we'll talk about this in just a second. It's so much easier for me to remember to do all the things I'm about to list after this. My digestive system is so much happier. I experience so much less indigestion in general. And what I like to do, because I am an energy worker and I love Reiki, so I put my hands over my food and I kind of send good energy and love to my food. And I close my eyes. I take 3 deep breaths. And sometimes I even try to picture, just very quickly, all the beings and situations, that have come about or that have been in process to create the meal in front of me, right? Whether it's me because I prepared it or cooked, the people who helped grow the food, maybe, if you're eating meat, the animals who sacrifice themselves for your food, and if that's not too intense for you, the people at the grocery store who, sorted it, put it out, the delivery people, the checkout person, right? The people at the farmer's market, whatever it is. I try to kind of think of that line of beings. It could be people, animals, plants that contributed to what I'm about to eat. And it's just a second, it's just a split second, but it just calms everything. And gratitude, in my opinion, is one of the best medicines for anything that ails you. So if you can just bring a little gratitude, just again, a few seconds before you eat, it really helps with digestion. And then you form that healthy body tissue and start to heal. And so some people even just like to say simple thanks. And, maybe you're dining out and you don't really feel comfortable doing this kind of, it's only a few seconds, but it might seem a little elaborate or weird to some people, or you're just not comfortable. So maybe just take a deep breath and have a nice thought. It could be, may this food nourish me so that I may nourish others, or I'm so grateful for this meal right now and the company, I'm so grateful for everything. And then you dig in. Whatever resonates with your comfort zone, with your traditions, or the company that you're in. But just that one little moment shifts everything, right? Turns down the nervous system and you're better able to assimilate your food. And again, this sets the tone for all the other guidelines. And it reminds you what you're doing here. You're creating a healthy body. You're calming your nervous system so that gut-brain axis, that connection through the nervous system can be clear. And ultimately, we're trying to heal ourselves and prevent disease. So there are bigger forces at work here, right, than just eating your food. But it just takes a second to remind yourself of that. So this is a really big one. And I've worked on this for many years even. And I still catch myself on bite 3. Oh, I forgot. And I'll put down my fork and I'll just take a couple of deep breaths and then I'll get on with the meal, right? And when I'm dining out, I just try to have a calm moment and take a deep breath in and out. So it sounds simple, but it's one that has taken a lot of work for me to remember to do. If you can remember, it's really instrumental in getting these other ones in, especially this next one, guideline number 5, chew thoroughly. And this one can be a game changer. This one can be really groundbreaking for those with digestive issues. So if you're like me and you have a really strong appetite, you probably have a long-term habit of shoveling your food in and eating really quickly because you're hungry, right? And this is not such a great approach to creating healthy tissue. As you can imagine, right? As strong as your digestive system might be, it's going to have a really hard time digesting whole pieces of food. So we want to slow down and chew our food. And this can help eliminate all kinds of problems, from reflux to gas, even chronic diarrhea. So you want to give your digestive system some help. Focus on chewing your food to an even consistency before you swallow. And again, if I take those 3 deep breaths, if I give myself that moment of grace, of gratitude, I remember to do this way more often than not. And, people ask, well, is there like a magic number? How many times should I chew? No, there really isn't. And you don't want to get too obsessive about it, honestly. So, you just want to chew your food until it feels like it's a consistent texture. Like if you spit it out, you couldn't recognize the food you just spit out. It might be a little gross, but I find that to be helpful. So, again, there's really no magic number. It's just that even consistency that you're looking for. And you'll know it, right? If you're a quick eater like I am, you're probably not doing that. So slow down, chew your food. It only adds a few minutes to your whole meal experience. Promise. Okay, guideline number 6, only eat until you are about 70-ish% full. Okay, and this is the key to finding an ideal supportive body weight that's right for your frame. And that some people's ears might have perked up when I said that. So if you can give yourself the space and the patience and the time to find what 70% means for you, it can be incredibly rewarding. It can eliminate calorie counting, right? Or food obsessing. It really can help create a sense of well-being, of satisfaction, and of contentment around your frame, your body frame. And this is going to ensure that you never feel stuffed or overload your digestive system. Because if we overload the digestive system, we're going to create digestive problems. We're not going to be able to break down our food very well. It's going to take a really long time. Food's going to sit there for a while. We're going to get gas. We're going to get bloating, et cetera, right? And then that is going to eventually lead to illness, to weight gain, excessive tissues in the body, all kinds of problems. And this is a practice that's used in all kinds of cultures. In fact, in Okinawa, there are alarmingly low incidences of heart disease, cancer, stroke, and there's high longevity. People live a very long time, and it's called harahachi-bu. I think I'm saying it correctly. I apologize if I'm not, but it basically means that eat until they say 80% full. Eat until you're 80% full. And so again, we're just not overloading the digestive system. We're giving it some space and some time to break down your food and assimilate it. And this can really take some time to figure out what that 70-80% full mark is, especially if you never sit to eat. You never take designated meal breaks. You don't have routine or rituals around food. So start with those couple of first guidelines and that I gave, and then start to work on this, right? You might not be paying attention to your natural hunger and fullness signals either, right? We tend to sort of like look at the recommended portion size on the box or the package, instead of asking our body, am I satisfied? How full do I feel? Or we probably all know what stuffed feels, and we all know generally what hungry feels like. And so you can use that as sort of like your 1 hunger and your 10 stuffed. And you want to be somewhere around the 7 mark, right? Where you feel satisfied, but you're not completely full. Like you could eat a few more bites before you get uncomfortable. And so play around with that. It's something that, again, takes a little time, takes a little practice. But I think if we could just not overload our digestive systems, then so many health conditions could be solved, right? And then again, it eliminates the need for obsessing over food and portion control and calorie counting. If you'll just pay attention, your body will tell you how much food it needs. And so that leads me to guideline number 7. You want to wait at least 3 hours before eating another meal or your snack to allow your digestive system to properly break down and assimilate your food, right? So according to Ayurveda, there are 3 stages of digestion. Right? They happen in the stomach, and then in the small intestines, and then the large intestines, in that order, right? It's as your food moves down. So if your last meal is still being worked on, let's say in the small intestines, in phase 2 of digestion, where a great deal of nutritional absorption is taking place, and then you go and eat something because you're bored or anxious or whatever, your body has to take energy away from that digestive process, that second phase, and go back up to the stomach where the first phase is, and work on whatever you just put in there. So now neither process, in phase 1 or phase 2, is getting the right amount of attention. And this is usually where those digestive issues start to come up. They rear their ugly heads. So allow the process to finish before you eat again. And 3 hours is really just a guideline, okay? Wait until you're actually hungry again, especially if you're working on this 70% full principle, right? It can take some time to get this right. So if you don't quite eat enough, maybe you only ate to about 50% because you just weren't sure, then you might be genuinely hungry 2 hours after a meal. And that's fine. In the name of trying to keep your body from thinking that, famine is coming, there's no need to deprive yourself just to follow this arbitrary 3-hour rule or guideline. Go ahead and eat again, right? But sit down, take a breath or two, chew really well. And again, stop when you're 70% full. Okay. So just apply those guidelines every time you eat. And then one more thing here, if it doesn't bother you to go a little longer than 3 hours to eat again, then waiting a little longer can give your body an opportunity to use a little stored fat as fuel. And this can aid in weight loss efforts if that's your goal. So I want to point out, however, that if you have a lot of trauma or triggers around food and hunger, deprivation, this could backfire. So going a long time without eating can increase a feeling of emptiness, which makes us feel ungrounded, maybe even dizzy. It unseats the nervous system, right? It makes it think that there's something wrong. Danger, danger, right? And so we might reach for whatever is available, and we might even eat way too much of it. So instead, you might find that smaller, more frequent meals eaten when you're truly hungry could work out the best for you. The catch, again, is that you really have to pay attention to your body's cues and your rhythm. So maybe set some alarms on your phone. Give yourself some physical reminders, like, physical cues like Post-its or notes around to remind yourself to check in. Because chances are, if you're not sitting to eat, if you're not eating meals at the same time every day, if you're eating, while you're distracted, then you're probably not chewing very well. You're probably not really cueing into your hunger cues. You might be skipping meals because you're absorbed in creative projects, or you're rushing around, or you're busy, or you're multitasking. So this might be a really difficult one, but it is so worth working on, right? So really start to tune in and don't ignore your body's cues. If you think you tend to do that, set an alarm on your phone for every hour. And when it goes off, close your eyes, take a deep breath, scan your body and see, am I thirsty? When's the last time I drank some water? Am I hungry? When's the last time I ate? Am I noticing anything going on here in my stomach? When's the last time I went to the bathroom and took a bathroom break, right? So even that is important. We want all those movements that flow downward. We want to pay attention to those. We want to tune into those and check in. Okay. All right. So guideline number 8, sit for 10 to 15 minutes after a meal, or take a stroll, take a little walk. This is a tough one for me because I'm ready to get back to business and get back to work after I eat. I'm ready to do another task or get back into whatever I was doing before the meal. But I'm getting better at reminding myself that for me personally, sitting and reading something that I enjoy, like a magazine or a good book, it's a real privilege that I can carve out the time for, right? I set my own schedule. I can take a break. And if the weather permits, taking a 5 or 10 minute little walk is a fantastic way to aid in your digestion, because the movement of the walking, it helps sort of massage your abdominal region, and it encourages peristalsis, right? The movement of the smooth muscles that line the digestive tract. So we're not talking about power walking, right? We're not trying to get our cardio in here. We're not working up a sweat. It's really a stroll. It's an easy walk. If you get too fired up about it, you're going to end up with other digestive issues, right? You're going to start to cramp up. You might even have to run to the bathroom, right? Because you're shunting energy and blood away from the digestive system into the muscles, and you're heating things up, and you have to release heat. So that's not what we're talking about. It truly is an easy stroll, right? So you want to take it easy, enjoy the scenery, notice your breath. We're trying to get you back into your body, right? Noticing its processes and its needs. So you can decide, depending on the day, which one you need. When I'm working and really busy, I decide to sit and read. because that's kind of the opposite of what I'm doing the rest of the day. But when I've got a lot of leisure time or the weather's really beautiful, I'll take a stroll. I'll just take a little walk, 5-10 minutes, all you need. You can go longer, of course. Some people love to do that after lunch. But again, it's not really for cardio. You can get some steps in and your heart rate will come up, but it's not for our purposeful exercise. It's for digestion. Okay. And that's a hard one because sometimes we're like, okay, I did all these things around the meal. I sat down, I ate at the same time. I took, 3 breaths, or I expressed a little gratitude. I chewed really well. I stopped when I was 70% full. Whew, that was a lot, right? Okay. Well, one more thing, just sit for like 5 minutes, take that 5-minute walk. And if you don't have time for that, take one more deep breath, take a moment, express gratitude one more time, and then go on your day. But whenever you can, carve out that little bit of time, right? Because we're just talking 10 minutes max to eat your meal and then another 5 minutes. So it's 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes. Most people can take a 15-minute lunch break. Okay, guideline number 9, we're getting there. Take no more than half a cup of water or liquid with your meals. Ayurveda says we want 30% of the stomach for solid food, 30% of the stomach for liquid, and then 30% for space or air. So everything can mix around. So any more than about half a cup of water or fluid with your meals, that's going to interfere with the digestive process. It's going to dilute your enzymes, your acids, etc. Right? It's also going to affect your ability to note when you're 70% full, when you're actually satisfied. So if you have something like soup or stew with your meal or as your meal, you really don't need a beverage at all. Additionally, you should take your beverages warm or room temperature at the very least, right? So even if you tend to be a very hot-natured person, or it's hot outside, the digestive system and the metabolism, they have to rev up to bring cold water or cold beverages or iced beverages back up to your body temperature. And that's going to cause a temporary surge in heat. And to release heat from the body, we sweat, we urinate, or we eliminate. And so if you're drinking a lot of cold fluid with your meals and you're cramping up or you're having diarrhea after your meals, that might be why. So eliminate that and see if it solves the problem. So the cramping, the gas, the bloating, the really, urge to eliminate right after a meal or loose stool, that could be caused by that mix of cold and warm or those ice beverages. So just try that, give that a shot. Try to eliminate that at meals. If you're really attached to your ice beverages, eliminate them around your meals. Just have a little bit of room temperature or warm water, warm herbal tea, something like that. Or again, if you're having soup or stew, you don't need any liquid at all, right? So we don't want to dilute your digestive process with a lot of fluid, and we don't want to interfere with the process by causing your metabolism to have to roar up and get everything back up to body temperature by bringing in ice beverages. Okay, so no more than half a cup of water liquid with your meals and not iced. If you must have iced beverages, have it between meals. Okay, so wait at least an hour to start drinking that iced tea or whatever it is that you're attached to. Okay, wait at least an hour after a meal. And then finally, guideline number 10. These are actually more than one guideline, but these are just some tips if you know you're dealing with a lot of dryness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of variability in your digestion, like gas, bloating, constipation, even alternating diarrhea and constipation. A lot of people identify with that. Then here are a few things you want to look at. Raw food. It's not your friend because it's very hard to digest. So if you have digestion that tends to be a little low or problematic or variable, instead of putting in salads and raw foods, which are cold and drying, bring in soups, stews, chilies, stir fries, curries, all those comfort foods, things we eat during the winter. They can take the place of other foods that may be really comforting but aren't supported, right? Like sugar, white flour. They're much easier to digest than raw food. So I know it's healthy to eat salad, but that's only good if you can digest it. It's only beneficial if you can digest it. It's only beneficial if you can turn it into healthy body tissue. And if you're having digestive problems, bloat, gas, all of those things, you're not turning it into healthy body tissue. Okay. So cooked food, aim for cooked food if you have a lot of digestive issues. Food should be seasoned really well. So, anything from Eastern spices like ginger and cumin and fennel and turmeric to more like Mediterranean spices, oregano, basil, even more traditional spices, thyme, rosemary. So those really help us assimilate and break down our foods. And they also are antioxidant. So they help prevent disease. So season your food really well. Now, if you can't deal with a lot of spice, that's okay. We're not talking hot, spicy. We're talking seasoned, right? Well seasoned, well flavored with fresh or dried spices. Okay. And herbs. So also, if you're a particularly dry person, a little salt goes a long way to keeping moisture in the tissues of the body. Same goes for oil. So use it in your cooking, high quality organic oils, and maybe drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil or sesame oil onto your finished product, onto your cooked food. Don't be afraid of oil and salt, right? These many health problems actually stem from dryness as a root cause. And the oil and the salt, again, a little bit goes a long way, but don't shy away from them. Use a little bit in your food. It will help immensely in calming, grounding the nervous system, satisfying your mind and your taste buds, your digestive system. In fact, salt is something that can immediately quell an anxiety attack. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of oil, well-seasoned food, cooked food, and then don't be afraid of carbs. So whole grains, right? We want to think our rices, quinoa, like our seeds, bulgur, what else? There's so many grains out there that are so great for us. Teff, amaranth, all kinds of cool grains out there right now. They're incredibly nourishing and grounding for us. So our often overly active minds, brains, nervous systems, we need that replenishment from all the B vitamins. They help us produce feel-good hormones like serotonin. I was talking about that in the beginning, that 95% of our serotonin, our feel-good hormone, and that helps regulate our sleep, is found in our gut. So we want to eat foods that encourage that. So don't be afraid of high quality carbs. They're good for you, but you want to cook them, season them really well, add a little bit of salt and oil. Okay. So I hope that gives you some ideas about how to get started in creating or even, recreating a healthy relationship and appreciation for your food, your digestive system, the importance of digestion and healthy digestion, and your body, right? So how we form our bodily tissues, it's from our food. We are what we eat. So we want to make sure that what we're eating is being digested and formed into healthy tissues. So I would suggest working on just one guideline a week or even one guideline a month, because like I said, it's taken me years to remember to stop and take 3 deep breaths before I eat. And I still catch myself forgetting. So we want to give ourselves time to create a habit around each of these guidelines. And again, if you sit down, because maybe that's the thing you don't do right now, if you just sit down, you might remember to do a few of these things, right? Whereas if you're standing up or doing something else, or maybe you just step away from work because you're a workaholic, step away from work to eat your lunch, then maybe you'll remember to chew. And then maybe that will improve your digestion immediately. And then I also mentioned, what about the other 15% of digestive issues that are sticking around after you've been really diligent in doing all these practices? So now you want to look at the actual food you're eating, right? So I mentioned a few of those things: cooking, seasoning, a little salt, a little oil, bringing in some good grains. But if that's still a problem for you, if digestion's still a problem, you want to get in touch with your friendly neighborhood Ayurvedic practitioner and find that constitutionally appropriate diet, right? That's going to be incredibly helpful for you. And you can also look at how you're combining foods. That's about 5% of the equation when all the other stuff is, you've done all the other things, right? You've looked at how you're eating. You're really following those guidelines. You've looked at your constitutionally appropriate diet. You're working with your imbalances through specific foods, through a specific way of eating, and then you're still having some issues. Then we start to look at how you're combining your foods. And the one thing I'll touch on one of those food combination suggestions, because it's the one that I find really solves a lot of problems for people with lingering issues, with lingering digestive issues. And that's separate your carbs from your proteins. And by that, I mean, for example, lunch, have your protein, whatever that is for you, whether it's legumes or some type of poultry or fish or whatever. Have your protein with vegetables. Okay, they get along pretty well. And then at dinner, have your carbs. Okay, whatever that is for you, whether it's like a whole grain pasta or maybe you bring in a grain or bread is your thing. Maybe that's when you have your bread, and have your veggies again with your starch that time, or your carbs. Okay, so separate your protein, have them at one meal with vegetables, and then have your carbs at another meal with veggies. Okay, so you're getting in all of your amino acids throughout the day. You're just not having them all at one meal, and that's fine. So as long as you get them in throughout the day. So that's one of the tips I find that's really, really helpful for people. There are a lot of food combining sort of rules or guidelines or tips, and they can be really confusing. Ayurveda gets really intricate about what we can eat with what, but suffice it to say, it's the carbs and the protein that's really helpful for a lot of people. So give that a try. If you're having some trouble, you've done all these guidelines, you've looked at your imbalance and you're eating an Ayurvedic diet that helps balance out your imbalance, and you still have some issues, look at food combinations. And so I would suggest leaving this talk that if you really want to work on these practices and improve your digestion for ultimate healing, right? To really form a healthy body, a healthy mind, and to start healing your diseases or your health challenges, then I would write down which guideline you want to work on this week and really commit to it. When you write things down, it really creates a lot of power, right? You create form behind your desire. And so work on that after weeks, see where you are, put it on your fridge or put it on your table or put it on your work screen or your desk to remind you to take that break or whatever it is you're working on. And maybe you find you need to continue to work on it one more week. And I find that true with like the chewing guideline, right? And then, as I've mentioned, the pausing to take 3 deep breaths, take a moment of gratitude before the meal to really calm down your nervous system. So that one took me a long time. But, again, be patient with yourself, and you might find that you just work on one of these a month. And after 10 months, wow, you might have perfect digestion if you're really committed to these practices and these guidelines. So again, be patient with yourself. Don't beat yourself up if it takes you a really long time to master some of these. It's incredibly rewarding, incredibly worth it. So also don't give up. And I hope you enjoyed this talk and learned some things. Please feel free to direct message me if you have any questions. And I really, really appreciate everyone for being here. And hopefully I will see you at the next talk. And I'll post some of these guidelines on my Facebook page on Meghan Hayes Ayurveda. So you can go and review them, and I'll post them in our chat on Messenger as well. So thank you, everybody, again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you hopefully soon. Bye-bye.